Boker Tov, one pasuk for today. Mishlei Proverbs Perek. We're still talking about the ant, what we can learn from the ant. Tachin bakayitz lachma, it prepares in the summer its bread. Agra bakatzir ma'achala, it gathers in the harvest time its food. So that the ant, during the time of harvest, it gathers and gathers and gathers. And then, the time of the summer, that's where it prepares its food. So the comparison, he says, is to a young person who, when he's young, he's supposed to gather and gather, learning Torah, do as much as he can. So that when he gets old, number one, you'll have something to do when you get old. But also, when you get old, you'll be able to dissect that Torah that you learned at a young age, at a raw stage. You'll be able to dissect it and go into it even further and further. We know the famous statement in Pirkei Avot, Im en kemach en Torah. Im en Torah en kemach. Generally it's translated, kemach means flour. If there's no flour, there's Torah. If there's no parnasah, there's no Torah. If there's no Torah, there's no parnasah. That's the general translation, and there's explanations on that. The Gaon of Vilna explains something different. Kemach, which is flour, is already, it was wheat, and then it was already grinded down to a flour. He learned that this is talking about Torah completely, meaning en Torah and kemach. If you don't have Torah when you're at a young age, you can't grind it into flour and really get to understand every single point of it at a later age. And imen kemach and Torah, if you don't have that later stage of really delving it, then you didn't understand it properly in the earlier stage. Each one comes hand in hand. It gives an example when a person, if let's say he needs to chop wood to warm himself up, once he chops a big tree, he could take that home and already cut it into many small little pieces, and it could last for a long time, as opposed to cutting many small little trees. So too, if you did a lot when you're young, then it could last you for a longer time. And he continues with this by saying, because when a person's young, he doesn't have worries. The parents pay the bills. So when he's young in yeshiva, there's no worries. You don't have anything on your mind except for learning Torah, and therefore to try amassing as much as you can. And that's the connection as well. These two things, the preparation and the actual eating. Right? That's the example here that the ant prepares and then he eats late in the summer. So too, we have the Torah shebichtav and Torah sheba'al peh, the written Torah and the oral Torah. Where in truth, the written Torah, though that's what we read all the time, you can't properly understand the mitzvot, etc., unless you have the backing of the oral Torah. And that's the two things here, where we learn the Torah shebichtav when we're young, but then we learn the Torah sheba'al peh when we get a little bit older, and then that goes back, and I plug that back in to the written Torah, that I fully understand it. Even though we're talking about young and old, as we always mentioned, even if a person just starts at an older age, don't worry, you could catch up, and it's not, don't chas v'shalom say, I missed those younger years when I had no worries, whatever, I wasn't immersed in Torah, etc. It doesn't mean that you can't still. Look at Rabbi Akiva, age 40 he started, and Moshe Rabbeinu said about him, he should have received the Torah, not me. So it doesn't mean that if you start late, that you're handicapped, but rather it's just saying, if the person's young and he's starting, then to try packing it in, as it can last you for a long time. Bezrat Hashem, may we strengthen ourselves in Torah at all ages and all stages in our life. Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen Amen. ונקשה ומרצה קדוש ברוך הוא לזכות את ישראל לפיכך יברא להם בדרום שנאמר אדוני חפץ למען צדקו יגדיל תורה וידיר. אמן.